This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Here's your host, Brandon Contes.
Alrighty, welcome to episode 130 of the Awful Announcing Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Contes, and this week we were very excited to be joined by Kaylee Hartung, who works for Prime Video and NBC. You see her throughout the NFL season as a sideline reporter for Thursday Night Football, and this weekend she's going to be one of the sideline reporters for the Super Bowl on NBC. And if that isn't a big enough job, she's also covering the Winter Olympics for NBC. Beginning right after the Super Bowl. She's flying out to Italy for that. Kaylee joined us to talk about working her first Super Bowl and the preparation that goes into it. She told us about growing up admiring Melissa Stark, who she's going to be working with at the Super Bowl on Sunday, and how valuable Melissa has been to her career. We talked about Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit, and the chemistry over at Thursday Night Football. We also talked about Mike Tirico and the entire NBC crew. Kaylee talked about the importance of sideline reporting and working in news and sports. She also discussed the powerful story that inspired her to have a career in journalism and media, and how that experience has shaped her values as a reporter. It was a great conversation with Kaylee. We really appreciate her taking some time amid what is a crazy schedule just a few days before the Super Bowl and then the Olympics, and we appreciate her joining to talk about all of it. So please make sure you rate and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page, and enjoy this week's episode of the Awful Announcing Podcast with guest Kaylee Hartung. All right, you see her on Prime Video's Thursday Night Football. You can also see her as a correspondent on the Today Show, and this weekend more than 100 million people will see her as a sideline reporter during the Super Bowl on NBC. She is Kaylee Hartung. Kaylee, thanks so much for joining us on the Awful Announcing Podcast today. And I know the announcement was just made last month, but have you known all season you were going to be working the Super Bowl with Melissa Stark for NBC? Like, when did you find this out?
Yeah, it was mentioned casually to me because I have worked the last 3 years, the divisional playoffs.
Yep.
NBC. So our producer, Rob Hyland, mentioned it casually to me, but the Super Bowl's on NBC kind of thing, and I was not about to ask any follow-up questions. It was one of those things where I was like, did he just say what I think he said? And then, the conversations got more formal as they have to in that moment, with contracts being signed and that sort of thing. And so once I got the contract signed, which was about midway through this regular season, yeah, I felt good about it. I felt real good about it. But it really wasn't until the announcement was in print just a couple of weeks ago that I was like, okay, this is actually happening.
Yeah, so I know this is your first time working on the Super Bowl broadcast, but have you ever covered a Super Bowl before?
I have. So for the past, 5 years, between my role at Good Morning America and now my role at the Today Show, I've traveled to the Super Bowl each year to cover the biggest event in sports for those morning shows. This is a very different experience on so many levels. But yes, I do feel comfortable knowing how Super Bowl week works to some extent.
Yeah.
It's entirely different when you put the game prep element into it, but it is nice knowing just sort of the lay of the land, even though it's different every host city you go to. It's been fun to be in these environments and feel that energy before, though I think it will feel different for me when I'm standing on the field of Levi Stadium on Sunday.
So what is it like for you this week? What is your schedule like? Like how different is it that you're preparing for the broadcast as opposed to just covering the events leading up to the broadcast?
Oh gosh, entirely different experience. I have said yes to 0 social commitments this week. And I think anybody who works in the industry knows one of the most fun parts of Super Bowl week is that everybody that you know is in one place, and you get to spend time with those people socially and catch up with people that you don't necessarily run into otherwise. And so I haven't seen anybody except the wonderful folks at NBC who I work with. Today is Wednesday, and today is our Patriots Day. So we will be at their practice having our production meetings with Mike Brable and Drake May and several other guys. Thursday is our Seahawks day, same routine with them, Mike McDonald, Sam Darnold, and the rest. But Monday night, opening night, was a great opportunity for me to get FaceTime with players on both teams and pursue some of the topics with them that otherwise in a regular game week, I would be getting on the phone with two guys. But opening night gives you the opportunity and the access to talk to a whole bunch more than two of those players. And then Tuesday was an entirely new experience for me in the sense that we, NBC, had our media availability. So it's a funny thing to be on the other side of the camera, so to speak, but a really great opportunity to heap praise on the people that we work with and an interesting opportunity for me to reflect on my journey and how I got here. And, I guess we'll do some more of that here with you.
Yeah. So is there a lot of added prep work that goes into this broadcast for you, or is it similar to a normal game at all?
I think back to what I used to hear Nick Saban say when I was covering Alabama for ESPN and SEC Network earlier in my career: trust the process. And I have a process that I trust to prepare for every game that I do. And so absolutely, on one level, you have to treat this just like any other game, because I feel like I treat every game as if it's a big one. And I am a preparation breeds confidence person. And I am still trying to figure out how to work smarter, not harder, and find those efficiencies so as not to get overwhelmed on a weekly basis when I'm preparing in the regular season. And then there's just more. There's just more that's coming at you as you're preparing for the Super Bowl. But the really unique thing about my preparation for the Super Bowl is that I am splitting the sidelines with Melissa Stark. And I think that both just gives us more hours in a day to spend diving into these rosters and every player's story and every player's journey and the themes of each of our teams and the most pivotal moments of their season and those moments where they really built towards this and the moments of belief. And so I think it's such a luxury to be in this position to share the responsibility with Melissa for so many reasons. But I think we both really appreciate the extra time that you do get when you never feel like there is enough time to know these teams inside and out as well as we can. But of course, we're both preparing for the other team as well, because when this game ends, regardless of who wins, she's on the Patriots sideline, I'm on the Seahawks sideline, we will both be involved in post-game interviews. And for me, I think the biggest challenge as the sideline reporter, as I see it, is to honor the moment in a post-game interview where a player has accomplished something special, especially on the Super Bowl stage. So I want to be ready to speak to whoever it may be that I'm putting a microphone in front of as their team is hoisting the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah, you mentioned preparation builds confidence. Are you nervous for the broadcast? Like it doesn't.
Oh, I'm nervous every time I go on live TV. I mean, that red light comes on Thursday nights when I hear Al Michaels' voice and the national anthem has just finished and we are moments away from kickoff and I know he's coming to me. I get nervous when I'm on the Today Show set and Craig Melvin or Savannah Guthrie is tossing to me and I'm just across the studio from him and I know exactly what's coming, but still I feel that flutter. And I think that nerves are healthy. I think they remind your body and your mind that you care. And I care so much about this job and I care so much about serving the broadcast in the best way that I can. So yeah, there will be nerves on Sunday. I am mentally preparing myself for that for sure. But I also think there is something so magical in covering live sports. I mean, you feed off the environment. How can you not? And I'm so curious to see what that feels like. I went down an absolute rabbit hole last night listening to interviews that Michelle Tafoya had done in the past after we'd had this whole media day and I'd spent too much time talking. I was just so curious how in the past, in all of the Super Bowls that Michelle covered, what was on YouTube? What could I find about how she talked about the experience? And I watched one interview where she said one of the most special things for her about working a Super Bowl is to look right at kickoff. She wouldn't watch kickoff. She wouldn't watch the players on the field in that particular moment. It's when she would look around and take in all the flash bulbs going off. Now, of course, there are iPhone cameras going off, but it was so neat to hear her reflect on that, just to think there's a moment, there's a moment that I can take it all in. Because for me, typically, any sporting event I work, that national anthem is always happening right before typically my first report. And so I take that moment to put my hand over my heart and to take a deep breath and to feel gratitude and excitement and nerves and feel all the feels and take a deep breath and exhale. And I think that I will do that. I plan to do that on Sunday.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good thing that you are used to feeling those nerves, because then if you're feeling nerves on Sunday, it's not a new feeling. It's something that, you're used to working with that kind of nervous energy. But I think it's interesting that you will kind of, it sounds like, take the approach of embracing the fact that this game and broadcast is different. It is bigger than some of the others that you've done.
You can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. I'm going to treat this like another game as much as I can, but you cannot ignore that this is Super Bowl 60.
Yeah.
And these games live forever. And more than anything, what I think about is the moment that this is for the players and the coaches and their families, and the dedication and the sacrifice that it took to get to this moment, to play on sports' biggest stage. And so it's not about me. None of this is about me. It's about them, and it's about honoring them. So that's how I take the pressure off of myself in some way and get out of my own head, just to want to honor this moment for them.
Have you ever, and I don't even want to put this energy out in the universe, but have you ever had the broadcast thrown to you early in your career and you just kind of froze up for whatever reason, whether it was nerves or technical issues?
Oh gosh, yeah. Let's I can, more times than I could count, at CNN, live breaking news, and there's a lot going on, and sure, oh gosh, I've got plenty of hits I would love to take back. So yeah, let's hope those have gotten out of my system. But that's the nature of live TV, right? We're human. And I'm not an actress, and I don't have a teleprompter down there. And that's where I go back to preparation breeds confidence, and to believe that I am prepared in those moments to share whatever information it may be confidently and accurately with the audience without screwing it up.
Yeah. And you mentioned working with Melissa on this broadcast, and it's not hyperbole to say that you'll be working the Super Bowl with your idol, correct? Like you legitimately had looked up to Melissa Stark when you were growing up.
I have. The very first time I ever met her, which was the draft in Las Vegas, right before she was starting Sunday Night Football and I was starting Thursday Night Football. I told her this story immediately, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope she appreciates this story. I hope she's not cringing as I'm saying this, but it's 100% true. When I was in high school, growing up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, my mom worked for the Athletic Foundation at LSU. And so I was lucky enough growing up, whether it was me going to LSU basketball games, watching Shaq in the late 80s, early 90s, wearing my little LSU cheerleading outfit, or watching LSU baseball win 5 national championships in the 90s, to LSU football, of course, just a fabric of life down there. And I had access, thanks to my mom's role at the university, to be around the coaches and players and to be comfortable with them and to recognize they're just regular guys, And so when it came to high school, my guy friends are all playing sports, and I was the girl who could talk sports with the boys because I was a fan. I just genuinely was a fan and had a passion for watching these games and caring about the athletes and the coaches involved and caring about the outcome. And so at that time, Melissa was the it girl on Monday Night Football early in her career. And, my favorite part about it now is that she was working with Al Michaels on Monday Night Football. And now I get to work with him every Thursday. But my guy friends started calling me Melissa, because in their eyes, she was the standard and she wasn't mine. But she became the first sideline reporter that I looked at in that role and thought, man, that would be fun. That would be so fun. And she does such a great job. And what an idea. What an idea. Because for me, the original dream and goal at 10 years old was to be on the Today Show. So I'd had my head in that space of wanting to tell other people's stories. And And I'd only thought of it through the platform of Today Show up until I watched Melissa on Monday Night Football. So yeah, now to call her a friend more than anything is really special. And to be her colleague is incredible. And the first divisional that she and I worked together 3 years ago, it was Buccaneers Lions in Detroit. That first season for Detroit to burst back onto the scene. And we were pulling up to Ford Field. And I texted one of my best guy friends from high school and college, my friend Bo. And I said, I am in a Sprinter van pulling up to Ford Field, about to work my first NFL divisional game, sharing the sidelines with Melissa Stark. And I said, I just have to say thank you, because if you wouldn't have put this idea in my head all those years ago, I don't know that I would have dreamed of it. But thinking back to the significance of her in my journey and my vision, I got emotional. Like, I feel like I get emotional now thinking about it, because I think, it's special when you get to dream of something and live the dream and interact with those people who helped you imagine the dream.
And there's the saying, don't meet your heroes, but obviously you've met Melissa. How has it been getting to know and work with Melissa now?
What's so fun is that because we met at this interesting moment in both of our lives where we were both starting new chapters, with her going to Sunday night and me going to Thursday night. And there is so much crossover in our production crews with NBC Sports behind the scenes, and the role that they play for Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
She and I were texting back and forth that first season that we were on the NFL sidelines in our respective roles about storylines and our process and how we were approaching this week or whatnot. And it's just been amazing to have a friend and a resource when you're in those same shoes and you're navigating the same challenges and trying to figure out how best to handle it. And I've been lucky throughout the course of my career to have incredible mentors and incredible supporters. I just got off the phone with Tom Rinaldi, who I am so grateful for and have been for so many years. We were together at ESPN. The first time I ever was in a 2-box with him on SportsCenter was a significant moment in my career where I was like, I cannot believe I'm sharing a screen with Tom Rinaldi. I cannot believe that I have to go toe to toe, so to speak, in my reporting up against Tom Rinaldi. We were both covering college football playoff, and it just, I've been really lucky to have wonderful mentors and supporters that I can rely on for advice and counsel and guidance. And I think it's a really cool thing about this industry. There are good people in it. There are good people who want to see other people succeed and who want to help and who feel like there's room for everybody. And that is a really, I think, fabulous thing about it.
How does working with another sideline reporter compare to when you're doing it yourself for a broadcast? I know you mentioned how the way you're going to split it with Melissa, but just in general, just knowing that you are splitting the job versus doing kind of everything yourself.
Oh gosh, I think every week you never feel like there are enough hours in a day or a week to prepare as much as you want, and this just gives us more time to invest in each of our teams on one level. But the other side of it, from a logistical standpoint, when you were on the field of a football game as a solo sideline reporter, it's a big field. And no matter how much you prepare, sometimes you are just out of luck and you're not in the right place at the right time. And so in this case, I mean, Melissa and I are making our chances better, right? We don't have to cover the whole loop of the field to be in the right place at the right time. We have cut that field in half, and we can focus on our sidelines, because a sideline reporter's job is to be the eyes and ears of the broadcast on the field in that way. And she and I will both be able to keep such a dedicated eye on our respective sidelines, which I think serves the broadcast better, puts us both at peace in a different way. And that is, I think, talk about confidence inducing, that you don't have to worry about taking it. Because I'll take off running if I need to. Never afraid to. But if, that star quarterback gets hurt and he's exiting the field this way and you're over here and you're running, trying to get there, and you miss that moment where you get to see the interaction between him and a trainer, him and a coach, him and teammates, just to overhear one bit that you could add to the broadcast to give context to the moment. Like, that moment's gone.
Yeah.
And it crushes you. It absolutely kills you. So let's hope.
What is in your ear during the game? Do you hear the broadcast, or are you listening to a producer or a spotter or a combination?
So in my ear, I hear the broadcast. Never interrupted. That is a steady volume of me hearing Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth. And
is there a delay?
No.
Oh
gosh, no delay. I'm hearing that in real time. And I think plenty of people, in whatever their role may be, you can alter the levels that you hear different channels coming through your ear. I am someone who always wants to hear the broadcast at the same level. Now, I have comms with my producer that Melissa and I share, Patricia Serber. She is in the truck. She is our liaison with Rob Hyland, who produces the game, but she is dedicated to us. And if anything, her job is tougher this week because she's got two of us to manage. But she is our go-to. And anytime Melissa or I have something that we want to add to the broadcast, we're going through Trisha to get her to discuss with Rob and pitch that and make sure everything is working seamlessly, because there is so much going on in that truck. For anybody who's never gotten the chance to be inside a truck live producing any event, much less the Super Bowl, it's wild. I don't know how they do it in there. But so I can hit a button on my microphone that hits Trish directly, and she can hit a key in front of her that hits me directly, or it's Melissa directly, or it's both of us at the same time. And then Rob, our producer, can speak to us when he needs to. He can speak to all of us. There's an all call button Rob can hit where he hits Mike and Chris and me and Melissa all at the same time. So there are a lot of different ways that this can all work. But thankfully, given the way Sunday Night Football has structured their crew, and it's the same way my Thursday night crew is structured, I have this dedicated producer who is really the most important communication for me to be having. Because sometimes I can be an overtalker, so I'm like really trying. You learn conservation of words, not just on air, but with the truck as well, because of how much is going on.
How is working with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit over at Prime? Is there camaraderie with that entire broadcast? What the
entire? Are you kidding me? Have you watched Thursday Night Football? The camaraderie is everything for us. Yeah. This crew, from Alan Kirk to Carissa, Tony, Sherm, Fitz, Witt, Taylor, like day one, it has been magic for us. And we are a family. We love each other. It is something I feel so lucky to be a part of, because that care, the trust, all of it is real. We have the most fun when we're on the road together, and it's a blast. And I think it comes across on air. I hope. What do you think? How does the chemistry feel for you as a viewer?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it definitely seems like everybody has a pretty good friendship and relationship on that. Like everyone seems to be enjoying each other's company and having fun there for sure.
No doubt. But man, we were in Houston, our very first season. It was a preseason game, really our first opportunity to kind of see what happened. And we're all hanging out in the hotel bar after the game, and the waitress comes around, last call. And Carissa and I are having our own little chat. Al's got a couple of the guys over here. And we're sort of like, oh yeah, we'll get out of your way. We'll get out of your hair. We'll shut this down. And then we hear Al go, well, that time with OJ. And Carissa and I are like, can we order some bottles? We're going to be here a while. We're not leaving. Al Michaels is telling stories. And now, just every time I get the opportunity to spend time with Al, to go to a dinner. If Al's down for dinner, I'm in, because I recognize that is time with a national treasure. And millions of sports fans would love the opportunity to have a dinner with Al Michaels. And you better believe I'm going to get every single one of them I can when I have the opportunity. But his stories are not to be believed. He is just truly one of the best. I feel so lucky that he's become an important person in my life. I've known Kirk for a long time. I, spent 5 years at ESPN. And so it was a fun thing for Kirk and I to connect when we realized we would be doing Thursday Night Football together, because we felt like the new kids. We were coming to the table with NFL experience. But I particularly enjoy Kirk's lens on the NFL game, in the sense that Al has all the institutional knowledge one could have of the league. And he has been a part of some of the greatest moments in the history of this game. And hearing those stories, amazing. But Kirk comes at it with stories Al's never heard before, because he's seen these players' journey. He, met them when they were a freshman at Ohio State or whatever it may be, and has gotten to see how they've developed. And it's really fun when you see Al light up as Kirk's telling a story that he's never heard before, and vice versa. So yeah, that chemistry is real. It's so fun. And then our pregame crew, pregame, postgame is just, I think it's really cool to have guys who, walked off the field, retired, and the very next season were on our desk. Just that currency that they carry, their relationships with guys who are playing right now. I'm talking to Will Campbell from the Patriots the other night at opening night about what a resource Andrew Whitworth has been for him, and how much he appreciates him. And, and here I am with the Seahawks. And Richard Sherman, who I'm telling Nikki Manwari, how much Sherm loves him, and how much I enjoyed their conversation together on Richard's podcast, but it's been a cool thing for me to have those guys as colleagues and friends as I got introduced to the NFL. Because what I'll do so often pregame, especially in season 1, is I would just hang with one of my guys. Fitz played everywhere. Fitz knows more people in the league than anybody. And, but I would just kind of sidle up to one of our guys, and whoever they were talking to, get introduced. And it really, because of their relationships, it helped me for my own. And I'm grateful for those guys. And Thursday Night Football, man, it's a good time.
So when you have that type of chemistry over at Thursday Night Football, is it then harder to get kind of thrown in and join a broadcast for 1 or 2 games in a season over at NBC?
I feel truly lucky that the Saturday Night Football crew makes me feel like family when I get to be with them. And, it was 3 years ago now that I did my first divisional with them, and right out of the gate, they made me feel like a part of the team. And I recognize how intimate the dynamics of these broadcast teams are when you are on the road together every week. And Mike Tirico is somebody I've known for a long time. We were at ESPN together as well. And actually last night at dinner, we were trying to remember exactly when it was that we worked our first game together. And I dug through the archives, and it was when after Ohio State won the College Football National Championship in 2015, January of 2015, after the 2014 season. I was in Columbus for the night of the game. Like ESPN had sent me to the campus, like in case they win, cover the mayhem that erupts. And it was absolute mayhem. But there was a big Ohio State basketball game that next day, right? National championship was on Monday. Mike was doing the Big Ten package for college basketball Super Tuesday. So it made sense that I could join that broadcast, because Sam Ponder was typically his reporter, and she'd worked the national championship. So it was like, I'm already here. Anyway. So that was our first game together. It was in 2015 in Columbus, Ohio. And I remember he and I went out to lunch, and I just took the opportunity to pick his brain as somebody that I admired. And we both started talking about our prep, and I'm seeing his game board that he's made and how it's color coded, and just the depth of detail that he goes into to prepare for a game. And then I show him my notes. They're color coded. And it was kind of like, okay, I see you, But it was a huge compliment to me that that he expressed his respect for my level of preparation. And that's something that is we've talked about many, many times over the years. And here we are talking about it for the Super Bowl. So all that to say, this Sunday night crew is exceptional at what they do. And for me, it really is an incredible learning experience every time I get to be with them and to be in a production meeting with Mike and Chris Collinsworth talking about the stories they care about and hearing Chris's analysis of and breakdown of these two teams. I mean, it's you see when you're behind the scenes with them why the broadcast is so good, because it's cool to see. And just, I'm a nerd. I'm like such a nerd when it comes to broadcast production and all the inner workings. And it's made me better to work with them and to see how they do it. And we were all out for dinner last night together, having a blast. And I love the chance to get to spend time with them and the Football Night in America crew.
Yeah, and then how we'll getting to work with Mike Tirico and what will be his first Super Bowl, because like you talk about Al Michaels, the career that he's had, and might be the one of the most renowned play-by-play voices ever in sports history with Al Michaels, and then here's Mike Tirico, who is just like right now seems like he's operating at like this peak performance where still every single week he still just gets a little bit better, which is amazing.
It truly is. No, I mean Al Michaels, Mike Tirico. How did I get here? No, it's really cool. I have such respect for the work that the play-by-play and analysts do, who I get to work with, because I deliver 22-second reports at a time, and I know how much work I put into preparing for those moments. But the command that Mike and Al have is remarkable. And they both have these voices that are very different from one another, but these voices that will define sports for generations between the two of them. And, it'll never get old to hear Al Michaels say my name as he tosses to me on Thursday night. And it will never get old to hear Mike Tirico do the same. And I know I will remember what it sounds like when he says it on Super Bowl Sunday.
You mentioned that you'll be working the Seahawks sideline, correct?
Yes, I'll be on the Seahawks sideline.
So how is Mike McDonald to cover and work with and try to chase down for interviews?
Gosh, I have so much respect for Mike McDonald. And I think one of the funny things for me is my career has progressed. It was one thing when I was in my 20s and working at ESPN and covering college football and having to interview Nick Saban, right? And it's another thing when I'm 40 and I'm covering the NFL and there is this entire class of coaches who are my age or younger, So I think that for all of us, it's like as you get older, you get more comfortable in your own skin. But then to know that I'm having a conversation with Mike McDonald, who's approximately my age, it's like, let me get out of my own head. I should not be intimidated by anything in this moment. Let me have a conversation with a real guy who will treat me like a real person. And it's not going to be anything more complicated than that. I am always so interested to ask players about the dynamics that they have with their coaches. And when you hear the genuine love that these Seahawks players have for Mike McDonald and the respect that they have for him, it's, to me, that very much informs how they'll treat me if I show up and they know that I'm prepared and ready for the moment. It's like, I think that I'm excited for, I'll do a pre-kick. No, it's arrival. When Mike McDonald arrives to the stadium on Sunday, I will speak with him and Melissa will speak with Mike Vrabel. Those will be live on camera interviews for our pregame show. And then, of course, we'll have our halftime interviews as well. But, Mike is a serious, focused coach in the middle of the heat of action. But, man, it is my goal to help him at some point in the course of our interviews on Sunday honor that moment and soak it in. And I want so badly for him to share with me what it feels like, the emotions of being on the Super Bowl stage in his second year as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. But man, the way his players talk about him just makes me want to do my job that much better to make sure that he is showcased in a way that the world that's watching can see what a special guy he is and how much he cares about his players.
And what about Sam Darnold? How is he?
Oh man, I mean, Sam Darnold is as good of a guy as it gets. Same can be said for Mike. Sam Darnold, man. I mean, the narrative of this Super Bowl, right? I mean, it is the story everybody's talking about. Sam Darnold's journey, and the road that led him to this moment. And I mean, Sam Darnold is classy. He will handle every moment of this with grace. And I got to meet Sam's dad when I worked the Week 16 Thursday night game in Seattle. I just happened to meet him on the field pregame. And I told him, I was like, you raised him right. Like I had to tell him and I'm sure he's heard it 1,000 times. But this story of Sam's and this journey that he's been on, man, what a cool opportunity for us to get to be a part of this moment in a journey that has been, quite a career arc. But yeah, Sam's as good as they come.
And you had mentioned that you and Melissa will both be on the field after the game, regardless of which team wins. Are you prepared to sort of fight through the crowds of people and celebrations to interview whoever it is that you need to on the field?
We'll do what we have to do for sure. It's live TV. We gotta get capture those moments. But conversations are had. We will be in communication with the PR staff of the winning team to say, Melissa will be on this yard line speaking to this player. Kaylee will be on this yard line speaking to this player. And there are people to support us and make sure guys are getting from A to B. I am super curious to see how this plays out in real time. Because, it's like, I never want to interject myself unnecessarily into a moment that a player is experiencing, right? Like live TV is what it is, and you got to get them before you get off the air. But I always want that player to have that handshake, to have that hug, to have that personal moment that he wants to connect with somebody that he cares about, who he's been on the field with, on his team or on the other field. I've been in many post-game situations where, the quarterback's coming to me and somebody's coming to love him up, or he's looking for somebody. And there have been times where I've been like, we've got 30 seconds, go do what you need to do. I want you to have this moment, but you better come back. So in this case, things are going to be happening very fast. Chaos is going to be on a level I've certainly never experienced in a game. But again, there are people to help us. Melissa and I are not out there on our own trying to navigate that. But say a prayer as the clock hits zero.
Do you know who you're going to be trying to get? Are you trying to get the quarterback or the coach, or does that kind of all get decided in the moment?
Fine. I mean, we got to see what happens in this game. You imagine whichever team wins, we will want to talk to their quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's Drake or Sam, you just can't imagine a scenario in which one of them is not getting interviewed because of their contributions to this game. I think that what could be a fun twist is, given how exceptional both of these defenses are, there could be a world where there's a great defensive play to end the game, and we want to talk to that defensive star. I mean, come on, we're talking about Patriots and Seahawks. Malcolm Butler, anybody, right? So I think that it's a wide open field, and where I feel very lucky given this matchup is that there are just great characters on both of these teams. I mean, the Seahawks defense, if my post-game interview ends up being Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon, Nicky Manwari, I have so many incredible options of guys whose emotion I know will be incredible and special, and who would do a beautifully eloquent job of expressing the magnitude of that moment. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba will be the most talented player on that field on Sunday. And he is young, but man, he is a great interview. He is thoughtful in his responses, and a post-game interview, if he is just done what we've seen JSN do all season with him would be, be pretty cool.
Is there almost an art to making the most of your question when you know that time is so limited?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yes. I mean, I'm already thinking now about questions I could be asking pregame, thinking of all sorts of different scenarios in my head. Sometimes I have to stop myself from going down that rabbit hole, right? Because you're like, okay, just let the game happen.
Yeah.
But no, I think that yeah, there is an art to it. I think a part of it is knowing that person. You know, the best question for this guy, not the same way you might ask it for that guy, right? It's just knowing how they respond best and knowing how to set them up to say exactly what you hope they will say and honor that moment. So I think it's knowing your subject and their personality. And the other piece of it, I think especially on this stage, is the preparation and knowing their journey, and knowing the significance. If I am talking to DeMarcus Lawrence after 12 years in the league and never playing in a Super Bowl, coming to Seattle, believing it was possible here and making it happen, like we're going there, which is a very different conversation than if you're talking to Nicky Manwari, the rookie jack of all trades, who's getting moved all over this defense, and has had these veterans to look up to and guide him. So I think especially on this Super Bowl stage, there's got to be an acknowledgement of that player's specific experience and journey. And then it's also, their dynamics with their teammates. If I'm talking to, Leonard Williams and Julian Love, we're on the Giants together, right? And now here they are in Seattle, and sometimes like that, knowing those dynamics comes into play more so as you're observing the sideline during the course of a game and the interactions and that sort of thing. But yeah, there's an art to asking the right questions, and man, do I hope I nail it on Sunday. But I think at the end of the day, when I think about how I ask questions, I learned this at ESPN. They call it the Sawatsky method: open, neutral, and lean. Keep it open. I am not asking a yes or no question. Keep it neutral. I am not characterizing their emotions. I am letting them do that. I'm not leading them in any way. And lean. Conservation of words. This question is not about me. It is not about showing you how much I know. It is about using as few words as I can to set them up to give us an illuminating answer.
There is always the sort of narrative that sideline interviews don't add much to a broadcast out there. I feel like that it was ramped up a bit after Carissa Thompson had made the comment about making up some reports earlier in her career, which she then kind of clarified later on. But what do you feel a sideline reporter adds or brings to a broadcast? How important is the role?
If I didn't think a sideline reporter added anything to a broadcast, man, I'd find other ways to spend my time. Well, I invest way too much time in this to think that the role is insignificant. We are the eyes and ears of the broadcast down there. The most important contribution I can make, I think, on many different levels is when it comes to injury reports. And I think about that player's mom, that player's third grade teacher, someone who is watching this game and cares about that athlete and has seen them go down and has seen them in pain and it is just agonized wanting to know, how bad is it? How serious is it? Can they come back and play in this game? Are they in the extra? What is happening? And to me, like, I'm the only person who can give you that information, and I can describe the look on their face. Maybe I've been lucky enough to overhear a conversation that was had, and the PR staff has given me some information from the athletic training staff. Injury reports are A1, the most valuable contribution I think a sideline reporter can contribute to a broadcast on the whole. But also, when it comes to these coach halftime interviews, sure, it's a tough situation to be in. I'm not going to lie. Those guys, I don't know any of them that want to do that. I don't know that I've ever talked to a coach at halftime who I felt like couldn't wait to talk to me. No, not the case. But I do feel like I have worked hard to build relationships with these guys and shown them how hard I work and proved my preparation to them and an investment in their team so that they know I'm going to ask them a fair question and put them in a position to share something they might want to say. Now, hey, maybe they don't. Ben Johnson before we're working the divisional. Oh man, I'd had Chicago for the wild card game on Amazon. And I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I've asked a coach at halftime, what was your message to the team? I try to only do that when it matters, when it really matters, when you really feel like that could shed some light on how they're handling the moment. Because it feels like a cliched question in so many cases. It feels like a fallback, but sometimes you get something great. I've certainly hit on it.
Yeah.
But I really try to be thoughtful about when I use that. So in that case with Ben, and the Packers were playing lights out, and we've seen comeback after comeback. At that point, the count was at 7 fourth quarter comebacks, or did we count that in this? Regardless, you know what I'm talking about. Comebacks are the story of the very season. So with Ben at halftime, I did not ask, what was your message to the team at half? I didn't. I asked about, because Ben, I know Ben well enough to know Ben is so much more in those moments of like an X and O guy, right? And again, you got to know these characters. You got to know how they like to talk, and what they like to talk about and where their head is at in these moments. And so I didn't ask Ben, what was your message at the half? And it comes out in his post-game press conference that he referred back to the miraculous comeback by the Patriots against the Falcons in that halftime speech, a game which he had 2 of his players, Joe Thuney, who was on the Patriots, and oh gosh, who was it on that was on the Falcons? He'd been there forever. Who was on the Falcons? He'd had them talk about that experience during training camp. And for the first time ever in the course of the season, recalled that moment in his halftime speech to the guys. And he talks about it in the postgame interview, and I am I am angry. I am like, the one time, I didn't even want to go there. Oh my God, I really screwed this up. So anyway, I get to see Ben the next week. I get to go back to Chicago. And man, I am in our production meeting and I just go, Ben, I got to ask, if I would have asked you at halftime last week what your message to the team was, would you have told me about 27-3? And he was like, no, I wouldn't. I was like, thank you, because I've been kicking myself all week long. But I say all of that, to say that at the end of the day, the value I can provide in that moment is that I'm the only person who gets to talk to him.
Yeah.
That access is special. And so I try to I put so much pressure on myself for those halftime interviews to try to get the questions right and to try to put those guys in position to tell us something. But I got a good lesson on Ben Johnson that I'll never ask a what did you tell your team at the half question to Ben Johnson, because he's not going to go there, So we'll see what I get out of Mike McDonald on Sunday.
I always ask for people's origin stories in some way. I like to know when somebody decided to work in media. I've heard your story before. I think it's one of the more meaningful backstories as to why somebody chose this industry. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, what is it that made you decide to have a career in journalism?
No, thank you for asking. And thank you for saying that. So I was 10 years old growing up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My dad was the most wonderful man I have ever known. He was a pilot. He flew aerobatics in air shows all around the world. And it just so happened that he was flying in Lafayette, an hour from our home. And so we went to the show and he crashed in front of us and the entire crowd. And it was the worst day of my life. And we go home that night. The TV was on, not because anybody was paying attention, And then all of a sudden the room stopped, and there was a report on CNN about how today in Louisiana, in front of 13,000 people, a plane crashed. And the report wasn't about my dad. It wasn't about the man he was, the life he'd built, the American dream he'd lived, the family he had, the life he was leaving behind. It was, his death was treated as an event. And at 10 years old, I didn't understand why that was the case, why the most personal and darkest moment of my life could be talked about on TV without any emotion. And growing up, the TV was on the Today Show every morning when I was getting ready for school. And that was how I consumed news to any degree, typically, and where I saw stories told. And so I decided at 10 years old that I wanted to tell other people's stories. And I didn't want anybody whose life was talked about on television, whether it was the best day or the worst day, to feel like justice wasn't done to their story and the people who they loved, who, you know, could be the subject of that story. So that's my why. That is my why. And sports, covering sports wasn't a part of that first dream. But like I mentioned, growing up in Baton Rouge, sports was a part of the fabric of our lives. And as I started to think bigger, the idea of covering sports came into the picture. And as I graduated college, Washington and Lee University, with a degree in journalism and politics, I was dead set on pursuing the news side of things and got my first job at CBS News, working as an assistant to the anchor, Bob Schieffer, and an associate producer for his Sunday morning political affairs show, Face the Nation. And that was like getting my master's in journalism. It was the best education I could have ever gotten in this industry. And it was while I was there that I started freelancing for CBS College Sports Network, because that was how I was able to get on television. And I realized how comfortable I was on a field and talking to players and coaches and being a part of that. And then had the opportunity to audition for ESPN and Longhorn Network and made that jump. And 5 years at ESPN, I got to cover some of the biggest sporting events in the college world and was having an absolute blast doing it. And I got a call from CNN, and I had said in an article that I was interviewed for in Sports Business Journal that my goal, my dream job, was to be a correspondent for 60 Minutes. And someone from CNN saw that, and they knew of me from ESPN and thought, wonder what her deal is if she really wants to get into news. And looking back on that, it's all actually a good lesson for me in that while I was working in sports at ESPN, I had a bit of an insecurity that maybe I would never make it in news. Maybe sports was what was meant for me, and would I be okay with that? And so when I was asked about what the dream job was, I wanted so badly to be taken seriously. And so I didn't say hosting the Today Show. I said being a correspondent for 60 Minutes. And that's not untrue. Please keep it on my list of dreams. I would love to contribute to 60 Minutes. Just what a legendary platform for storytelling that is. But I purposefully didn't say Today Show, because in my mind, it felt like not serious enough, or like I would be judged in some way as the sports girl who wants to go on morning TV, or I don't know what it was, but I made that choice, and it turned out it served me well because it got CNN's attention, I think. But then making the move to CNN was one of the most important decisions in my career, for sure, because I loved my job at ESPN, but I did want to be challenged in new ways. And all of a sudden I was more so fulfilling the mission that I envisioned at 10 years old of showing up on the worst days of people's lives. And for 2 years at CNN, I didn't do much but cover natural disasters and mass shootings. I don't think I smiled on TV for 2 years. And that was such an important learning experience for me, such a challenging learning experience for me, but it also helped me understand that I needed to be a more full version of myself in what I was doing, and that I'd had the privilege of showing up on the best days of people's lives so often at ESPN. And now I've built the skill set to show up on the worst, and I can do both. And it is, as much as my time at CNN challenged my confidence, it also built it in new ways. And so now, fast forward through my time at ABC, the Thursday Night Football offer feeling like maybe the biggest surprise of my career. And now being able to do the NFL and today's show, it's a better professional marriage than I could have ever dreamed up. But at so many different steps in my career, as I jumped off cliffs and took these chances and bet on myself. I mean, people told me I needed to pick a lane. People told me I couldn't do it all. And in my head, I sort of said, watch me. And I think I'm really proud of the chances that I've taken, and it's just kind of crazy to be sitting here now.
Do you feel that you've been able to maintain those values that made you want to work in journalism and media and tell people's stories throughout your career? Because there is, with media outlets, there is so much like, here's the headline. We take the emotion out of it. We take the sometimes remove the emotion that might be connected with the subject out of it. So do you feel that
I can't as a human? Like, I am a human first, and every story I tell, I think about who loves this person that's hearing the story being told. And that's not an overstatement. I think about it with every story I tell, because I'm telling other people's stories, and people are trusting me if they speak to me, and I am using reporting from those conversations. Like, they are trusting me with that. And I take that seriously, and I consider it a privilege. And it's what I love about reporting on sports and thinking about being on this Super Bowl stage. I mean, these guys are the best in the world at what they do. And the journey that it's taken each of them to get here, the dedication, the sacrifice, it's tremendous. And those are the stories that I want to tell. And those are the stories I want to honor and do justice to, because let's celebrate. It's the Super Bowl.
I know we have to finish up here in a minute. I appreciate all the time you've given today, but as if the Super Bowl isn't big enough, I do want to just mention that you're also covering the Winter Olympics for NBC then. So when are you flying to Milan?
1 a.m. after the game. And the cool thing about this is that I'm not special. There are so many people at NBC who are doing this double duty. And I think it's a really cool thing for us to get to share, a really unique experience to get to be a part of both of these events. I mean, led by Mike Tirico. Yep. That man is one of one. He really is, in his range and his talent and his just capacity in his brain and his hours in a day. I don't know how he does it. But yes, I will be one of the many going from California straight to Italy. We will get to Milan late Monday night, and I'll stay in Milan that night. I'll be on the Today Show from Milan Tuesday morning, and then, or I guess it's Tuesday afternoon Milan time. And then I will make the 4-hour plus journey to Livigno, which is a ski town in the Italian Alps, where I will be the reporter for moguls and aerials events. I'm like, is that sideline? Is it like slope side, mountain side reporter? I don't know. But same, conceptually, same job. And that town, I think, is going to be such a cool place to be in. I mean, this Olympics is so different from my previous experience in Paris, because in Paris, the magic of it was like everything was right there in the city. And you walk out the door and pop to this, and you felt everything felt so alive with the Olympic spirit. Whereas in Italy, it's 6 different venues. And so once I get to Livigno, especially after a 4-hour drive through the mountains that I've been warned to bring Dramamine for, I'm not leaving. I am embedding in that town And there are some real fun events going on there, from snowboarding to all of the freestyle ski events, including moguls and aerials. So I am just going to hunker down there and see what that whole experience is like. I have never seen moguls or aerials events in person. So I will be covering them live in my first experience. And I cannot wait to be wowed. Like, what they do blows my mind. And it was funny. I was in a conference call with my broadcast team for those events. And our analyst is Hannah Kearney, who is a former gold medal mogul skier herself. And, such an asset to this broadcast. And I was asking her, in a football game, one of the best contributions I can make is in the case of weather and how that's affecting the players in the game. And I was like, help me understand how different conditions in the mountains can affect what these skiers are experiencing. I was like, because pregame, before an NFL game, I'm always talking to the kickers about the wind and getting their take on which direction it's coming from and which end zone is more favorable to them. If they can get a couple more yards going to the left, or, this, that, and the other. And she was like, so in these events, think of the human as the football. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I just think the adrenaline it's going to be pumping through that town is going to be awesome. And I can't wait to be there.
Are you a skier at all? I don't know how many mountains they have around Baton Rouge.
I've been skiing once, and at 12, I hit a tree. I broke both arms and a leg, and I retired from the sport. This is why I talk sports, because I'm not athletic to any degree whatsoever. Definitely not a skier.
All right. Well, Kaylee, you were great. Thank you so much for doing the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Good luck in the Super Bowl and at the Olympics. Have a blast with all of it.
I appreciate it a ton.
Of course. That is Kaylee Hartung. I'm Brandon Contes. This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast. Please also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page. But regardless of how you consume Awful Announcing and the Awful Announcing Podcast, thanks for listening and be good.
Thanks for listening to the Awful Announcing Podcast. For the latest news spanning the sports media landscape and more, check out awfulannouncing.com and follow us at Awful Announcing.